Morning, Bluewater. Welcome to the Bluewater Backstage podcast, the inaugural podcast that may or may not be ended up with that name. My name's Tim. I'm one of the pastors here at Bluewater Church in Sarnia. Welcome to this inaugural podcast. I'm here with my good buddy, Scott.
Good to be here with you guys. Excited for this. We'll see how this goes.
We may or may not end up naming it. Scott, you just came up with like 5 or 6 amazing names right off the top of your head without any use of technology at all.
Right. I wasn't putting into practice the stuff that we learned over our AI conference this past weekend, but we got a couple options. Maybe you guys want to weigh in on that as well. But
what are some other good ones?
Actually, Bluewater Backstage was one of the ChatGPT generated names, so it did make the list as well. So we are at least as smart as the robot.
I have a robot brain. One of us does at least. Well, we are, again, trying to revisit and go deeper into the topic that we covered in our Bluewater sermon series this past week. We talked about, we're jumping back into the Gospel of Matthew. We're covering in this series the miracles in Matthew, about 20 miracles in the book of Matthew that he recorded from Jesus, depending on how you count them, obviously. And rather than spending, 20 weeks talking about each individual miracle, we are putting these into categories. So 7 categories where we're going to talk about miracles this week, talking about the fact that Jesus heals. Matter of fact, Jesus is the kind of Messiah. He's the kind of king that has the authority to heal. And listen, Scott, I had some very smelly experiences when I was a kid. Go with me on this. When I grew up in elementary school, my elementary school was out in the country. It was beside a pig farm. And there were days when that pig farm, I'm telling you, the smell was so thick you could taste it. It was so thick that it would cling to us, even being across a field from this pig farm. My parents could smell it on us when we got home because stink, it transfers, it attaches to things, it transfers to things. And this is one of the really significant ideas that we have to understand when we're talking about the Old Testament, that we have to understand when it comes to Jesus in the Gospels. And this idea that stink travels, uncleanness travels, and that is true with everything except Jesus. With Jesus, it's not the uncleanness that transfers. With Jesus, we're going to see this time and time again in as we work through this series, it's his holiness, it's his purity that transfers. So he is not polluted by uncleanness. Jesus pollutes uncleanness with his holiness. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, that is super cool. I'm really glad after a break in a lot of topical sermons to be back in Matthew, but it's kind of nice to break it up this way and sort the miracles by theme. I think it is, so I don't have the same experience with you in terms of the stinkiness of the job quite to the same level, although I did share on Sunday that I worked at the pepper greenhouse and that had its own rotten peppers, not like fish or pig farms, but I get it a little bit myself. And it is an interesting thing because we don't think about this ritual purity stuff and the transfer of uncleanness at all like they did, obviously. And I'm actually right now taking a class on the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of the Bible, and just learning more and more about how serious this whole system of purification was and how big a deal it was to be deemed unclean, because that means you're cast out of the presence of the people. You're not able to enter into the presence of God, who is holy and clean. And so the weight of the fact that Jesus can transfer his purity, transfer his cleanliness, and not receive impurity, like it's hard for our minds to conceptualize that to the way in the same way that they did. That meant a lot.
We have all of we have such a vast array of technologies and everything else in order to make us clean, right? In order to purify us, to have hygiene. If I am thinking about my shower at my house, first of all, there is a shower. We have this technology by which we have water that runs over us, and the amount of bottles and different types of cleanliness things that are used in my house. Just for the record, I've got one. Well, I guess two. I've got one bottle for shampoo. I've got one bar of soap. That's how it works for me. And yet there is this plethora of different bottles. You got a house full of ladies at your house, so it's a different story for you.
There are all kinds of things in there that I'm not sure what they are, but I don't think they're needed personally. But
here we are.
Each his own. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm thinking about the times when I go camping and how,
so not so much with the showering.
Not so much with the showering, right? Like
usually you're alone in the woods though, right?
That is true.
That's a good thing.
It smells a little bit of a different thing. Yet it's so not the same when it comes to hygiene in when you go camping. It's when you get out of your rhythms, when those conveniences of hygiene are not there. It does make it challenging that in ways that we don't appreciate always to clean yourself, and that throws us back to this idea in the first century and before that, when Jesus was walking around, when they came up with this cleanliness codes, with all these cleanliness codes going back thousands of years before that, how important cleanliness was, how important cleanliness is. And I think you're right. I would frame it like this. I think that one of the ways that the enemy, that the adversary gets his best stuff done is by what? It's by attacking this idea that we fundamentally think we're clean. We fundamentally think that we got it together. It is very unusual for us to, for example, smell each other. Yeah. Go camping and that's a different story.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like in our context, usually a lot of the work is done in convincing someone that they're not clean, that they have a problem, right? Obviously, we're talking spiritually rather than just physically too. But it's been really interesting in our work with the Sarnia jail as we go in there to really see kind of that play out, because the guys in the jail, the ladies in the jail, really understand that they have a problem. They see the uncleanness because they're in jail. It's kind of obvious that there's a stink, there's a problem there. The far harder thing actually at the jail is communicating that same truth to a lot of the guards who work there, who see things as we're clean, we're good. These guys are the bad guys. They're the ones behind bars, but I'm clean. It's them that has a problem, right? So it's a different starting point in that scenario than for most of us.
And that is the excellent starting point that we are jumping off from this week. In Matthew chapter 8, Jesus, there are three stories of Jesus healing people. And Matthew chapter 8, first of all, we see that he heals a leper. Then we see that he heals a centurion servant, so the servant of a Roman centurion who is tasked with the keeping the peace in this conquered region, right, of people that hated him. And then finally, Peter's mother-in-law, so Jesus being a male, and the distinct male to female relationship structures that were involved in that society. And Jesus breaks the conventions in healing all three of these people that to one degree or another would have been considered unclean. It really, really is quite profound, Scott, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a really cool way. We were talking a little bit in our sermon prep about this. Like it says in verse 14 to 16, I believe Jesus healing many. Like there's so many at a certain point. They're unnamed, but you were saying Matthew is specifically ordering these three in a row, whether they happened literally on the same day in succession or not. There's a theme there about reaching the least of these, we might say.
He structures that very purposefully in that way. You're 100% right about that. And, this makes me think about Rosaria Butterfield. I'm not sure if you, I know you know who Rosaria is.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Yeah.
Author who started out as a professor of gender studies at a significant university in the United States. I believe it was Syracuse. Am I right?
I'm not sure about that, but I remember reading the story that, very, very liberal-minded, obviously a practicing lesbian at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. And she was came in contact with a pastor and his wife who were not afraid to cross those barriers, not afraid to cross those lines, not afraid of her and her ideology, welcomed her into their home for meals, and over the course of a long time, actually, introducing to her the ideas about Christianity and the things of the faith. And over time, man, the Lord really broke through some of those difficult places, some of those hard places in her heart. She became a follower of Jesus Christ, and man, she is just such a powerful witness to the transforming power that God can bring into someone's life. She is one of my very favorite authors, and man, I can't recommend her strongly enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Pastor Tim actually has a stack of her books in his office for those who are interested. He's given out copies like What I don't know. What do you say? Like what? I
Like
don't know.
hotcakes? I don't know.
Like hotcakes. So talk to him about that for sure. She's excellent. It is a really cool thing when we look at these images that come from a passage like this and so many other ones about the cleanliness factor, that like Christianity stands far and away unique, that you don't clean yourself up and come to God and appease this distant and angry God, but we definitely can't, and we come to him as we are, and he does the cleaning, right? That is just such a radically different thing than any system of faith that is out there on planet Earth, right?
It really is. It's not up to us. And man, our eyes are so hidden from that. We fundamentally think that this is something that we can do. And yet when it comes to salvation, it's the Lord that has to open our eyes to that. Reminds me of the brave men and women who work with the junior hires in our church, in our
Talking
context.
about smells, you know.
Yeah, talking about smells. I mean, some of these junior hires, it is remarkable how nose blind they are to themselves, and the work that's involved with convincing them that, you know what, this is something that you need to do. You need to
ministry.
Yep. And when it comes spiritually, we can't fix ourselves. We can't clean ourselves up. Fundamentally, what we need is for Jesus to be the one who pollutes us in our uncleanness with his cleanness.
Absolutely.
Hey, let's talk about another factor when it comes to reading this passage in Matthew chapter 8 with these 3 healings. Does Jesus actually heal?
Absolutely. Like we said on Sunday at Bluewater, we 100% believe God still heals today. Now, there's definitely periods in the Bible of waves of miracles, right? Like there's, Moses, Elijah, Elisha, the age of the apostles, Jesus, obviously. These are unique periods or waves of miracles in Scripture. There's lots of times where it's not that. So are we seeing miracles on that scale today? No, not in the same sense as in the ministry of Christ, but we believe God heals. We talked about the fact that, like James 5 says, we believe in the power of prayer for healing. We would love more chances to do that. That's so important. But there is definitely this dangerous idea out there that God's will, and this is popular in like the New Apostolic Reformation movement, sure, yeah, and others, that, God's will is always to heal. How much have you run up against that idea?
It seems to me that there's a ditch on both sides of the road. And the ditch on one side of the road is this, as you just said, this idea that we can order God around, and that God's intention is always, every time, to heal his children. And not only do we not see that borne out in Scripture, we also don't see that borne out in history. We also don't see that borne out in our lives. Right. If we did, there would be no one who died, right? Yep. If Jesus tarries, every single person that has been born since Jesus ascended into heaven and until he returns, one day is going to die. So clearly, the intention is not that that there's going to be healing every single time on this side of heaven. Now, Jesus one day will return, and the promise is that all will be made right, and the life to come is the life to come that will not end for those who are believers in Jesus Christ. So that's the ditch on one side. The ditch on the other side is that Jesus isn't functionally able to heal. And people in our tradition might be tempted to say, like, oh yeah, we believe in Jesus heals, but functionally, do we actually believe that?
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, I don't know how we could read the Bible and really think that we won't experience suffering and pain in this life. Like, we look at the lives of the apostles, we look at the lives of Christ, and our own experience today, right? Certainly, we all have loved ones who've suffered with chronic illnesses, and we've lost loved ones. So, like, yeah, reality just does not play out to demonstrate that idea. But you're so right. We can also maybe more in our tradition than in some others be hesitant, or we run to the doctor, we run to the hospital, which those are great gifts of the Lord, obviously. And we kind of say, yes, Lord, heal if you will, but, and we land more on the but part of it than really trusting that Jesus can and does still heal. And so, yeah, I like that ditch analogy. That's good. We want to stay in the middle there for sure. We may be tempted to feel like some of those who, for example, I'm thinking of people in our church right now who, the prognosis they got years ago was that they had months to live, and they're still doing well. They're still honoring the Lord. They're still following the Lord. They're still experiencing that kind of ongoing healing. Well, guess what? One day
even they are going to die.
Yeah.
We all are. And then on the other side, I'm thinking about those who in our church have got bad news and things happen in a hurry and they meet the Lord in a hurry. And we tend to maybe think that only one of those two parties, only the people that the Lord extends their life for, are blessed by the Lord. And yet, as a pastor, I know you've seen this as well. One of the things that I have seen is the grace of being taken quickly. Sometimes the greater blessing is not having to experience the difficulty that can come with dying. Dying is no fun. Dying is hard work. Yeah. And sometimes being called home quickly is, wow, what a blessing.
Yeah, as hard as it is to say, right? We believe that for the Christian, death is not the worst thing that can happen to you, even though our culture, that's not original to me, but I forget where I've heard that, but I think that's so true, right? That for our culture, that is the great fear, the worst possible thing that can happen. And if we believe teachings of Scripture, it's really not. Easier to say that in one sense than to live that out. But yeah, and the beautiful thing is, I really believe we could pass the mic up and down the rows at Bluewater on any given week and really fill most of our time hearing the stories that God is healing. But yeah, certainly the Bible does not teach that that's always His will. We have to develop a solid theology of suffering too, right?
We absolutely do. One of the saddest things that can be seen is a Christian who's afraid to die. It is just remarkable in how blind that area of their life is. Here's the other thing, man. Hospitals are a gift from the Lord. Doctors are a gift from the Lord, and God does heal an awful lot through those natural means, and I think supernatural means that appear to us as natural means.
Yeah, absolutely. We could talk a long time about this because, man, our inclination, even when something miraculous does happen, is to, and I'll be honest, I'm a skeptic at heart in some ways with these stories sometimes too. That's just my wiring. But our first inclination might be to find the natural explanation, right? That's the worldview of our culture that has kind of permeated our hearts and minds a little bit as Christians at times. If we're honest too, we want to see the scan, we want to hear the doctor's report. And yeah, like you said, lots of miraculous things are happening and often dismissed by ourselves or those in the medical field as, well, I guess we got this wrong the first time, right? And so there's lots of miracle stories that we end up robbing God of some glory he's deserved because it is supernatural.
Here's the other thing that's a really important and significant part of that. I feel like often we are healed or we're saved by Jesus, we're saved from our sins, and our fundamental position is that we're saved for us. We're healed for us. So like, hey, God, thank you that I'm healed. Thank you that I'm saved, but now I'm going to sit in that. And we can learn from Jesus healing Peter's mother-in-law. Man, she understood this in a very thick and deep way. She understood that no, she wasn't healed to just sit there. She was healed to serve. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, number one, part of the podcast idea is that we can explore some things that we might be interested in and talk about through the week, but just don't have time to fit into a sermon. And man, one of them is like, who's Peter's wife? Who's this guy married to? He has a mother-in-law, so we know for sure he's married or was married. But these are some of the things that Scripture doesn't spell out, but are interesting to talk about. Yeah, and right away, she rises to serve Jesus. There's no pause in the narrative where they're checking on her, giving her some rest. She understands who he is and what has been done for her and wants to get after it. And I think, like you were saying on Sunday, that should be our mindset, right? That we're not saved just from something, but for something. We should be pursuing service to the King. Absolutely.
And in that, we can find so much meaning. Boy, do we find so much meaning. I'm thinking of a number of, well, in my case, what I'm thinking about is a number of older guys in our church who have decided that, you know what, I have not been given what I've been given in order to just sit here.
Totally.
I have been given what I've been given, and I'm going to continue to serve. And in these cases in particular, I know these particular gentlemen are serving the Lord by serving other people. And it is remarkable to me that the more we serve others by serving the Lord, there is this reciprocal thing where there is no question about having meaning or purpose in our life. And I have yet to come across someone. I've been doing this pastor thing for a very long time now. I've yet to come across someone who sacrifices and serves the Lord by serving others, and then has a meaninglessness or a hopelessness or a purposelessness sense in their life. These two things just do not coexist.
Yeah, and it's so important to remember, like, different seasons of life look different, right? And our
Absolutely.
availability and our capacity and our resources and all those things, our time, look different at different stages. But it's so beautiful seeing people who are maybe older saints serving so diligently, using their time, using their resources in that season. Because if we only limit ourselves to serving the Lord when we have all the time, all the resources, all the capacity, there may never be a window of life that looks like that. Or the best case is you're talking about a small section of 5 to 10 years right in the middle when you don't have littles and you have all your health and all this stuff. If we say when we have littles or when we're in our later years, oh no, I can't be used by the Lord, I can't serve him. And we're talking about significant time periods of our life that we're saying, no, Lord, that's not for you. That's for me.
It is crazy, and it is so important. Hey, so we're assuming we're making a lot of assumptions here. We're assuming that this is going out to primarily, Bluewater Church. And if someone is hearing this and thinking like, boy, I really need to figure out how I can plug in. I really need to figure out how I can serve the Lord by serving others, either out of my bounty of time, out of my bounty of energy, or even out of the dearth of energy. I have so little energy, I have so little time, but what I have, I want to give to the Lord. How would you say that would be something that they could step into?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to see more people serving at Bluewater. You can talk to a staff member if you are in contact already, and maybe you know the person that oversees the area of ministry you're interested in. Maybe you have no idea where you want to serve. You have no idea your spiritual gifts even, or any of that stuff. Maybe something that could be worth pursuing is scanning the QR code you're seeing plastered everywhere that takes you to the Join a Team page on the website. I'm pretty sure Bob has one over the top of every urinal in the bathrooms of Bluewater.
Fantastic.
So you really can't escape the QR code. Maybe don't scan it then, but find the appropriate time to scan. And
scan it
will it will take you to the page where you join a team. You can enter some things that you're interested in, explain some of your giftings if you know them. And it's just a first point of contact. We'd love to walk with you through figuring out where is the place that you can best be set up to serve the Lord here at Bluewater.
I'm so thankful for the members of the team that have made that happen, and we would love for people to make use of that. One of the things that we could spend a second talking about is the fact that Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law. This by itself is a remarkable thing. It doesn't seem remarkable to us, but in a first century context, wow, is that such a remarkable thing? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think sometimes we buy into this, or we don't buy into it. We hear this narrative that Christianity is oppressive to women, and there's these negative ideas like that. And the reality is, there's no one like Jesus in human history, really, that is pursuing the liberation of and the valuing of women. We could talk a long time about that, but like John chapter 4, the woman at the well, right? This is the first person Jesus reveals his identity as Messiah to is this woman with a unfavorable past and background, and as a Samaritan even as well. We see this healing here. We think of the bleeding woman. Women are the first witnesses to the resurrection. Like on and on, Jesus is uplifting women in a first century world where there was a hierarchy. This idea that all people are equal is a uniquely Christian idea that no one in the ancient world would have believed.
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, not only would no one have believed it, in that context, it was a detriment to the communication of the message of the gospel that it was women that were involved in some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, without question, full stop, there is nothing and no one that has been liberating for women more than Jesus, the writings of Jesus, the writings of the Apostle Paul.
Yeah, no, agreed. Something that we talked a little bit about divine, but I'm not sure if you guys worked into the sermon here. We talk about lepers this week in Matthew 8. Like, this is an idea that is so foreign to us because I just learned this past week that there's only a couple of cases of leprosy really going on in Canada and the United States every year, largely been eradicated. And I don't know if Rachel and Austin can testify to this, but a lot of the cases are coming in the U.S. from people south of the border eating undercooked armadillo.
No way.
This is a thing. So
armadillos carry leprosy.
Yeah, you got to avoid that, or at least order it medium well, I guess, when you're down there.
Next time I eat armadillo, it is going to be well done.
But this is something totally foreign to us, and like the most isolating experience. And that really brought to mind this story of a guy named Father Damien, who maybe you had heard of. I had heard of him in passing a number of years ago, and just think it's a super cool story. His mission to lepers.
This is years and years ago. Val's parents took us to Hawaii for a vacation. We actually saw from the island we were on. We saw the location on Molokai where they had that leper colony, and it's not a leper colony anymore. Tell us a little bit about Father Damien, because boy, is this a powerful story.
Yeah, it was a pretty substantial one. I think there were 600 people who were we should say suffering from leprosy, not leper, I suppose, but that's the word that we hear often. It's so foreign to us now, but 600 people suffering from leprosy were in this colony. They needed a priest, they needed a pastor to go there, and Damien volunteered. He didn't have to be conscripted to go and do that. And man, he started a church there. Which is significant, but the really significant part of it isn't that he founded a church there, but that he ministered an incarnational ministry to these people. So he ate with them, he touched them, he bandaged their wounds, he dug their graves, he spent time with them, and he eventually, inevitably, got sick and died because of it.
This is something that, this is not something that's unique to Father Damien. One of the reasons that Christianity spread in the early church was that when plagues would come into a region or to a town, everyone who is healthy would vacate. They didn't understand germ theory. There was a lot they didn't understand. They just understood they had to get away. So people would vacate. It was Christians who would stay and care for these people, to care for the dying. Inevitably, what would happen is exactly what happened to Father Damien. Inevitably, they would catch the illness. They didn't have ideas about germ theory either. So they would often care for those who had contracted these illnesses after those people had died. Then those Christians that were left would themselves die with no one to care for them. And we might be tempted to think, what a waste, how horrible. And yet, that is not a horrible thing. That is a beautiful, beautiful picture of what?
Yeah, I mean, it imitates the incarnational ministry of Christ, but and also the sacrifice of Christ in a sense. And this is kind of viewed as like, without a Christian worldview, this is foolishness. Why would anyone do this? The thing is, as we talked about recently, it wasn't to be nice. This isn't niceness for niceness sake. I love this quote from Father Damien. He says, "I make myself a leper with the lepers to gain all to Jesus Christ." So kind of in the same way Paul talks about becoming all things to all people, not to the Greek becoming a Greek and the Jew a Jew, but Damien becomes a leper to be like the lepers, not so that they would feel more loved and valued and, someone bandaged my wounds, but because he saw that they needed the ultimate healing that comes through Christ. And even he laid down his life. He was secure in the arms of Jesus because he knew that death isn't the worst thing that can happen for a Christian, right?
This is not a waste. This is not the waste of a life. And we are so polluted by materialism. We're so polluted by this gospel of niceness. We're so polluted by this idea that I have to make my life mean something to me. And man, that is not a waste if the highest and best thing is Jesus. How better can we pour ourselves out? How better can we offer ourselves as a sacrifice and service on the faith of on our faith as an offering to Jesus? How better can we do that than by offering ourselves as on behalf of others? And listen, God's not calling every single one of us to go to a leper colony. Mm-hmm. God's not calling every single one of us to have our lives look exactly like Father Damien's. God is calling every single one of us to lay our lives down, mm-hmm. to understand that the greatest and highest thing that we can give ourselves to is the gospel. And my favorite thing saying is that we need to preach the gospel, die, and be forgotten. How better can we do that? How better can we honor the Lord than by doing that? Well, we want to thank you for listening. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning or afternoon or whenever you are listening to this. My name's Tim.
And I'm Scott.
If you wanted to connect with us, you can reach out to us at office@bluewaterbaptist.ca. It would be so helpful if you share the word, spread the word. We want to get people, especially at the church, connected with this because we think it's valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely dive deeper every week, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Producer Bob, for making this happen. And don't forget, friends, that you are loved.